I put together 21 tips to help you increase your savings this year so that you can save more and eventually invest more, whether it's in yourself or the stock market. And make sure you stay to the end because the very last tip hits home really, really hard. Hey, what's going on? This is Maoli Vodi with Financially Present. And if you're new here, welcome. I'd love it if you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out. And if you're not new, welcome back. Thank you for supporting the channel. Before I get into the tips, I want to make sure that you also drop some of your saving tips in the comments below so that other people can learn. And there are so many different ways, so I want them to hit their goals this year too, and you can help as well. So with that said, let's get into the tips. Tip 1, a no spend challenge. This is where you pick a period of time where you don't spend on anything unplanned or entertainment related. It gives you a moment to pause and be resourceful with what you have until your challenge ends. I found that ladies might do this better than men because women spend more consistently and men can be a little bit more impulsive with spending. And this no spend challenge can be a month, a week, a weekend, whatever the length of time. You are simply just making a game out of it and putting others on notice. So for example, if someone asks you if you can go out this weekend, tell them you aren't spending this weekend. If they ask why, tell them you're saving for something big. This sets up a good boundary for you and for others around you. The next tip, review your expenses from the last 30 to 60 days, and this is important. See, this is gonna help you take note of charges that don't look normal. It's gonna help you see subscriptions that you don't use but you're paying for very often. It's gonna help you see any interest charges if you're using credit cards. It's gonna help you confront your spending, and honestly, it will help you if you plan on doing a no spend challenge, so it works twofold. Tip number 3, set a savings goal. I don't care what the amount is, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, you need a goal, something to work towards, a target to aim for. And not only that, $1,000 could be meant for your emergency fund, your $2,000 could be for vacation, the $10,000 could be for, it could be enough for you to start a business. Whatever it is, make sure that the savings has a goal. Studies have shown that if you have a goal, you are most likely to succeed. The goal becomes your why, the reason why you say no, or the reason why you say maybe another time to something else, basically. You need a reason to defend. And this is gonna help you reach your goal. If you wanna reach any goal, you have to say yes to your goal and no to a purchase here or there. You have to say no to going out to lunch every day in order to say yes to that vacation in a few months. Say no to the cute outfit or the pair of shoes, but your no's have to align to your why, and that's your goal. Tip number 4, budget. See, this is the part where you say, duh, yeah, I know, Maoli, I should be budgeting, what else? But the fact of the matter is that budgeting is tough. We start to do it for a little bit, and then when life happens, and sometimes we want to treat ourselves and we want to take a break, and then the weather gets nice and we want to do things. We want to take vacations. Then the holidays come around, and then we're doing this each year. Let's be honest. We all need a reminder that it's not always about what you make. It's about how you manage what you make and your lifestyle. Take a moment to look at your income. Think about the things that you buy and the things that you truly value. Then look at your expenses, whether they're discretionary or fixed expenses like your housing costs or other discretionary expenses that are flexible like your entertainment budget. If these items don't align, then it's time for you to take a closer, deeper look and see what changes you can make. I mean, I can go into detail in a separate video, but if you want to take a look at some reasons why budgeting fails, check out this video right here. Tip number 5, stop using your credit cards. This is specifically if you're carrying a balance and you're struggling to keep it down. Focus on this first. It's going to help tremendously with your savings if you know that your savings is your savings and not a payment towards a balance for something you've already bought and can't return. When you use a credit card, you tend to spend more than if you were to use your own money or savings to purchase that same exact thing. Additionally, as someone who uses credit cards sparingly, I can tell you that credit cards have a way of reducing the pain of paying for an actual item. So you don't feel like it actually costs you, even though it really does. If you're making a purchase, the last thing you want to do is become numb to it, because it makes it harder to be aware of your problems or your vices. Whether it's eating out or shopping, it's more healthy for you to feel it in your bank account directly than it is to not feel it on your credit card statement. And trust me, in the end, you will feel it. Using your credit card just numbs it temporarily. And another thing, if you spend with money, your money, instead of a credit card, you will actually spend less because you're forced to spend within your means. The next tip is to get organized. This one is difficult for most people, but I would say think of it from this perspective. If you were no longer here and someone else had to pick up after you, would they understand your finances? If you have a significant other, do they understand the finances overall, or is it confusing? Are some things in one account here and another account over there? If that's you, if you have any questions about it, then it actually is time for you to get organized. And even if it's something as simple as using a spreadsheet and listing all of the regular costs and how they're paid, what bills use bill pay, what bills use auto pay, do we pay anything with cash? Look, if you want to start somewhere, grab a free copy of my budget spreadsheet as a starting point to help you just walk through your finances, and then you can take it from there. Tip number 7, make coffee at home. And this is something that I've always done because that's simply because I prefer my coffee like me, black. And I've never been a coffee house person. So if you truly need to have a latte or a cold brew, it's still cheaper to buy the milk frother, buy the syrups, and make it at home. Unless you have some sort of membership where there's an unlimited sip club and it makes coffee cheap for you, it's way more effective that you just make it at home. Because odds are when you go into a restaurant, you don't simply get a coffee, you get a pastry or a sandwich or a bagel to go with your coffee. So to be honest, coffee is really symbolic. Just make sure you understand yourself and your tendencies, because it may not be coffee for you, but it could be a Diet Coke or fries or a coupon for something that's free. It's the thing that gets you through the door or the drive-through to spend more. Know what it is and find a better alternative that will benefit your spending and your saving. Tip number 8, reduce peer-to-peer payments. Now, don't get mad at me. I'm talking about Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, Venmo. These are really convenient and I actually like them because I don't like to carry cash, but my biggest complaint about these companies is that they're not banks. They're not functioning as a bank. And if you have a bunch of transactions through these methods, it makes it hard to recognize or categorize your purchases. And if you have to budget and look at your bank statement a month or two later, and you're gonna see Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, transfers, and none of them are gonna make sense to you until you dig deeper and realize, oh, you split a restaurant bill with a friend, or you sent someone a gift, or the list goes on. The awareness of the transaction for you is what starts to get blurry. And if you disagree with this or use these payment methods in such a more clear way, please let me know in the comments below. The next few tips will definitely help you if you like to eat out. Don't order alcoholic drinks. I know for some people, they're having a dry January or they're making some adjustments to their diet, but a cocktail at a restaurant ranges from $10 to $20 at most places. If you order 1 or 2 drinks, then that means $20 to $40 in a bigger tab, in addition to an appetizer or a meal. And not only that, obviously you're gonna need to tip a little bit more because it's a function of the total cost of your tab. So just make a decision to have a beverage at home or after or not at all, and save that money for other purposes. The next tip is similar, but I do have an exception. Cut out appetizers from your order. By the way, this is technically a 2-for-1. Appetizers on some menus are almost the same cost as an entire entree itself. And just like the previous tip, if you order an appetizer and a meal, it makes your tab bigger, so your tip needs to adjust in a similar fashion. The only way it really works to leverage ordering an appetizer and a meal on a budget is if you know for sure that ordering the appetizer means that you end up saving half of your entree for a later meal. Again, this is something where ladies are much better than guys at. But if you end up bringing your leftover entree to work for lunch the next day, then maybe ordering an appetizer might actually be worth it. So, case by case. The next tip is to do curbside instead of dining in. Apart from the fact that you can cut back on leaving a tip or leave a smaller tip, when you dine in, you have a tendency to order more off the menu, obviously. So if you do curbside, then you can save that amount towards the next time you want to get curbside. The next tip, don't order through DoorDash or Uber Eats. The costs are marked up significantly compared to actually ordering from the restaurant directly. And I spoke with a restaurant owner recently, and they mentioned to me that they eventually stopped offering those delivery services as an option because it actually didn't do much, if anything, for their business. Because some of these companies take up to 30% cut for the actual restaurant. And I'm sure this can vary depending on who you speak to, but for the consumer, the costs are much higher than if you were to take some time and pick up the order yourself. Now, the next tip is where you might get a little irritated with me. Cut back on eating out. I know inflation has driven up costs for eating out, and it's also driven up the cost for eating at home, but I know for a fact it is still more cost effective to eat at home in most scenarios because you can cook food in large quantities and either freeze or repurpose meals. There is a chance you just need to be a little bit more creative, and I've seen some great ideas where you can put your normal grocery items into an AI platform and it can generate plenty of ideas, and you can stretch meals for meal planning at home. Just take some time and be a little creative. If you don't like that idea and still prefer to spend money on eating out, my next tip could be very well right up your alley. And that tip is to order catering for meal prep. And I know it sounds interesting, but this depends on your meal preferences. And I know that some people don't like to eat the same thing over and over again, but for example, let's say you love places like those fast casual restaurants where you're able to build a bowl, where you have something like steak or chicken or rice, whatever it may be. I want you to check with them for their catering menu. And you might have to spend a minimum of $100 or buy a full pan of an entree, but you'll be surprised how convenient and low cost it can be if maybe every other month you decided to do this and freeze some of it so that your main meals are covered for the week or even longer. And we did something similar like this for a small party where we ordered for 10 people and had so much left over for multiple days that we might do this as an option because it ended up being less than a week's groceries and we had enough for several days. Again, depending on your household, maybe you have kids that are picky eaters and things of that nature, this could work very well, or you can just get really tired of a meal very quickly. Now, my next couple of tips are for all my shoppers out there. If you don't think shopping is an issue for you, that's okay, but just make sure you stay to tip 21 because I guarantee you it affects you and the people around you. My next tip is to cut back on your purchases from Amazon or Prime. This gets tricky because sometimes you're buying things you need and other times you're buying things like clothes or shoes or stuff that you want. For most people, I think the membership is technically worth it because it's very convenient to order, but it's also convenient to order too often, and that's when it becomes time to review your category of spending this falls into. But it's much harder to explain whether something is for taking care of the house or for treating yourself. It gets too blurry. So use some caution or just restrict your purchases on Prime to a specific category per order so that you can really understand all of those purchases when you look back the next month. Speaking of Amazon, the next tip is to use camel.com. And it's pretty cool because it tracks the price of items specifically on Amazon. So It'll help you check to see if the price of the item you're looking at is really the best price, or if it's been the same price all along. Because let's face it, sometimes things are just listed as marked down, but it's not really the best price that you can get for that item. Speaking of shopping, the next tip is to unsubscribe from emails. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do this about every other month, or whenever my emails just get out of hand. Just look. You'll see that these coupons are available one way or another. I like to Google coupon codes before I make an online purchase. If coupons are in your email, they're completely gonna bog down your inbox, and it increases the likelihood that you're gonna miss out on more important emails. Most places are gonna ask you for your email or download an app so that you can get the discount or coupons. And if you really want those coupons, just create a separate email address for all of those types of coupons and discounts at stores. It'll help you keep track of them as well. Now, tip 18. This might irritate you a little bit, but don't buy new clothes. If you have to do something, just adjust the accessories. There have been plenty of times where I've seen my wife wear something she had for a long time, and all she did was add some new accessories or combine it with something else, and it just gave it a fresh look. And I'm like, okay, I see you. And you'd be surprised how different a shirt or a jacket would look if you simply match it up with a shirt that you don't normally wear. And we all have a bunch of clothes in the back of our closet or bottom of the drawer, and these clothes fit, but we just don't think to put it on. And right now, baggy stuff is in, so odds are you might have some old clothes that are perfectly fine. The next tip is to sell your stuff. If you know you have items that you no longer use, the kids have outgrown them, or you realize that you live perfectly fine without it, just sell it. I mean, you can make a little bit of money and you can clear up some much needed space. There are plenty of community forums like Facebook Marketplace, eBay. Even if you don't get much for it, it may still be worth it to just get rid of it or sell it. Depending on the time of the year, you can get rid of these seasonal clothes or tools or exercise equipments or items that someone else can use. Just be sure to stay safe. And my two recommendations are that you meet in a public place or you take cash, and simply remember that there's strength in numbers. So have a friend or a neighbor just keep an eye out. But regardless, the amount you're making selling these items can be put directly into your savings, and that can help with meeting some of the goals that you have for that money. My next tip is price match. And this is especially for all the shoppers. If you know there is a better price out there, you have to ask and see if there's some wiggle room with the price, or you're gonna leave. Just tell them you're gonna leave for the better price, and usually they'll match. Sometimes you're comparing two things and the only difference is the price. The point is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. Now, this next tip will really save you. Buy nothing groups. There are groups online in specific communities where the number one rule is that you can't charge anyone. You're not obligated to pay anything at all. And the only thing you're doing is taking it off of someone else's hands, whatever item it is. And you can use these groups to help declutter your home. You can use it to get something you plan on using in the future. The point is, you don't have to spend money. I have friends that they've hosted entire parties, and when you ask them how do they pull it off, and they tell you half of the party decorations or the party favors were from their Buy Nothing group. If you're going to use this, my cautionary advice is just to make sure you do your research and to stay local. And this is my last tip, which happens to be my most serious tip of this video, so thanks for staying. Reduce or eliminate your vices. Now, this is a little difficult because this can require some professional help due to underlying predispositions and conditions. But when it comes to our vices, and I'm talking about alcohol, marijuana, smoking, vaping, sports betting, scratch-offs, lottery tickets, these come at a financial cost and then eventually a health cost, because in the future, these can all negatively affect your medical bills. And I'm not talking about randomly doing these things socially or occasionally. Nobody is perfect, and I don't expect anyone to be perfect. I also don't expect you to think I'm perfect either. So don't assume I haven't done or tried these things. There is a big difference between an occasional parlay versus doing it every week while sitting at the bar. And while I know it might be fun for farts and belly laughs, there is significant stress and anxiety that comes with sports betting. And it can be fun too, obviously. And there's also a big difference between a glass of wine or two at home or beer and having a regular happy hour crew or consistent run to the liquor store. If you're watching this video, you are at the age where what you do now affects your livelihood in the future. And if you have little ones around you, whether you want to admit it or not, they're subconsciously taking in or taking note of your habits and your norms, like how often you work out or not, or how often you take smoke breaks or whatever it is. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And obviously it does affect your ability to save. So I just want to caution you, if you can reduce it, what I'm getting at is you have to take a moment and understand if this is a problem. And if so, please make sure you start seeking some help. I wish it went without saying, but if you notice a pattern here, there's a strong correlation with reducing your consumption and saving. If you have some saving tips that you use, share them in the comments to help others out, because I guarantee you it'll help whoever comes and sees this video and looks at the comments. And if you're interested in dozens of other wealth building tips, check out 100 Critical Tips to Building Generational Wealth, linked below. And until next time, stay present.